Catherine called me after 3 years of silence. She didn't even say hello, just went straight to it. "Come over tonight. I made dinner, just us." Her voice didn't sound right. She was breathing too fast, like she'd been running or crying. I asked if John would be there, and she said he wasn't feeling well. Then she laughed, but the sound was sharp and forced. I almost said no, but it was my sister. The last time I saw her, she'd been calm. Strange, but calm. The kind of calm you fake when something's boiling under the surface. I told myself it was just another one of her episodes, that she needed company. So I drove there. By the time I arrived, the sky was black. Her house was lit up like a hospital room. The curtains were closed, and the light from inside spilled through the cracks like something trying to escape. She opened the door before I knocked. Her face looked thinner, her eyes wider. She hugged me too hard, whispering something I couldn't catch. The smell of cooked meat filled the hallway, mixed with something sour underneath it. When I asked how she was, she said, "Perfect. Better than ever. You'll see." Her smile didn't move right. She led me to the kitchen. The table was set for two. Everything looked perfect, almost staged. The plates were big, the meat thick and dark, the gravy a deep red. It didn't smell bad, just wrong. I asked where John was again. She said he was upstairs, resting. Then she turned her head and stared at the ceiling for a moment too long, like she was listening to something moving up there. I tried to laugh it off, but she didn't laugh back. She poured wine, spilling some without reacting. Her hands were shaking. I didn't want to eat, but she kept insisting, her voice getting sharper each time. "You always judge me, even for the food. Just eat." So I took a bite. It was chewy, soft and salty in a way that made my stomach twist. I forced it down and tried to talk about anything else. "You've lost weight, Kat. Are you okay?" She smiled, still looking at my plate. "I've been eating better, taking care of myself." She sat across from me watching me chew. The room was quiet except for the ticking of a wall clock. Every second felt too loud. I tried to steer the conversation somewhere normal. I asked about work, the neighbors, her car. She answered with short, disconnected phrases, her eyes drifting away every few seconds. Then she started laughing for no reason, staring at my hands as I cut another piece of meat. Before I could say anything, she spoke again. Her tone changed. "You know what I hated about you when we were kids? You get everything first. Clothes, friends, boys. Even Mom liked you better." I froze. She didn't sound angry, just empty, like she was describing someone she'd already buried. "I used to watch you sleep. Did you know that? I'd look at you and wish I could pull your face off and wear it, just to see what it feels like to be you." The fork slipped from my hand. It hit the plate and echoed through the kitchen. She leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes fixed on me. "Don't look so scared. We're sisters. We should understand each other." I stood up, trying to keep my voice calm. "Kat, you need help. I mean it. You should talk to someone." She tilted her head like she didn't understand the words, then smiled, slow and crooked. "I already did. He's upstairs. You should say hi." My chest tightened. I didn't want to go, but I had to. Something inside me needed to see. Maybe I hoped she was lying. Maybe I just didn't want to believe she wasn't the same sister I grew up with. The hallway was darker than before. My hands were cold and slick with sweat. I reached the door to the bedroom. The smell hit me before I even touched the knob. It wasn't meat. It was blood. I opened the door. John was on the bed, or what was left of him. Pieces. That's the only word that fits. Skin peeled, muscles open, blood soaked through the mattress and dripping onto the floor. His eyes were gone. His chest was hollow. I froze, unable to move or scream. The only sound was the buzzing of a fly near the lamp. Her voice came from behind me. "I told you he was here." I turned. She was standing in the doorway, the carving knife in her hand. Her apron was soaked red. She smiled like she was proud of something. "You didn't have to go upstairs if you wanted to see him. You already did." My stomach dropped. I understood. The meat, the food, the taste. I fell to my knees and threw up, choking and crying at the same time. She watched me, breathing hard. Her expression was somewhere between joy and fury. "You always thought you were better than me. You think I don't know how you looked at him? You don't have to hide it anymore. You had dinner with him. You can stop pretending." She laughed loud, hysterical, echoing off the walls. I crawled toward the door, slipping in my own vomit, desperate to get away. Her footsteps followed, slow and heavy. "Don't run. You're family. Family should stay together." I bolted down the stairs. My legs barely worked. She was close behind, dragging the knife along the wall, scraping the paint off with every step. The front door wouldn't open. My fingers were shaking too much to turn the lock. She was still talking, calm now. "He didn't love me, you know. Not the way he looked at you. But that's fine. I fixed it. I made sure you'd be part of him forever." The sound of her footsteps got louder. I hit the door at my shoulder again and again until it burst open. I fell outside, hit the ground, and crawled through the dirt. The air outside felt freezing and clean, burning my lungs as I tried to breathe. When I turned back, she was standing in the doorway, holding the knife at her side. The porch lit her face, and she looked almost peaceful. "You'll come back, won't you? We never finish what we start." She raised her hand and waved, smiling like we were kids again. That was the last time I saw her. They arrested her the next morning. She confessed to everything, every detail. The news said she laughed during the interviews, told them she made dinner for family. I couldn't go to that trial. I didn't want to hear her voice again. Years passed. I moved far away, changed my name, tried to rebuild something that felt normal. But sometimes at night, I smell cooked meat when there's nothing on the stove. Sometimes I wake up thinking I hear her laugh from another room. Last month, I got a letter with no sender. The handwriting was hers. The message was short. "You didn't finish your plate." I burnt it. The smell of the paper was the same as that night. I stayed awake until sunrise, listening for her voice, waiting for the sound of a knife against the wall. Because I know she's still smiling somewhere, picturing me sitting across from her again. And maybe one day, she'll call. This story is inspired by Catherine Knight, the first woman in Australia to receive a life sentence without parole after committing one of the country's most gruesome murders in 2000. She stabbed her partner John Price at least 37 times during a violent argument in their home. What shocked investigators was what came after. She skinned his body and hung the skin from a meat hook in the living room, arranging the scene with a disturbing sense of order. Police later discovered that Knight had also cooked parts of Price's body, preparing them as if for a family dinner. The act was both deliberate and ritualistic, revealing a deep level of cruelty and psychological disturbance. Her sentence marked a turning point in Australian criminal history, as she was declared too dangerous ever to be released.
I've been in homicide for 14 years, but there's something about a spa murder that sticks with you. Maybe it's the silence, the smell of lavender, the still water, the illusion of peace shattered by blood. They called me at 7:42 a.m. on a Friday. The dispatcher's voice trembled when she said, "Sir, possible homicide. A man's been found dead inside a wellness spa. Throat slit." When I arrived, the body was already cold. The water in the jacuzzi had turned the color of rust. His name was Dylan Shaw, age 27, and the woman kneeling beside him, trembling, mascara streaked down her cheeks. That was Ella Grant, 29, his girlfriend. "Miss Grant, step away from the body, please. We'll take it from here." She stepped away from the tub with trembling feet.
I didn't touch him. I just found him like this. Oh, God, Dylan.
"I understand, but I need you to calm down. You said you work here?"
"Yes. I'm a therapist here. I open up in the mornings. He stayed back last night."
"Stayed back? Why?"
"We went out drinking. Me, Dylan, and my 2 friends. We came here after the club because I had the keys. He wanted to relax in the steam room. We were all drunk. I told him to lock up when he left."
"And you went home?" It wasn't a question, but a statement. She was still shaking as she answered.
"Yes. I called him at midnight. No answer. I thought he passed out."
I kept on investigating the crime scene as she spoke. "Who else has access to this spa?"
"Only me and Vincent, the owner. He's like a mentor."
As if on cue, Vincent walked in. He was in his mid-40s and looked pretty calm for a man whose business had just become a crime scene.
"Detective, I came as soon as I heard."
"My God,
what happened here?"
He tried to sound concerned, but I can tell from my years of experience, he wasn't. "Mr. Hale, I'll need to speak to you as well. How long have you owned the place?"
5 years. I ain't never seen anything like this. Dylan used to come here often. I knew him through Ella. Good kid."
Something bugged me about that statement. Was he? Vincent hesitated for only a second before slipping his sad mask back on. But I caught it.
"Sometimes he was temperamental. But I can't believe this."
You said temperamental, meaning violent?
No, just moody. You know how men can be after drinking.
We'll need your security footage, Mr. Hale.
Of course, but the cameras in the main hall were being serviced yesterday. They may not have recorded anything.
Convenient timing.
"It's the truth,"
Ella chimed in, which should have been my first clue. The coroner confirmed what we already suspected. Dylan's throat was slit clean, a sharp blade, likely a professional cut. Time of death between 2 and 3 a.m. No signs of forced entry, which meant whoever killed him walked right in. The spa's door was unlocked. We found 2 sets of muddy boot prints near the back, size 11 and 9, neither belonging to Dylan. 2 men, maybe. We brought in Ella for questioning first. That's when the story started to smell worse than the blood-soaked towels. "Ella, I need you to think carefully. Did Dylan have any enemies?"
"No. I mean, he argued with people sometimes, but not like this."
"Did he ever fight with Vincent Hale?" That seemed to get her on edge. That's when I knew I'd hit a nerve.
"No. Why would he?"
"I'm asking the questions. You told us Vincent was like a mentor, but I checked your phone. You've been texting him late at night. Quite a lot. Miss you. Thinking about last night. Should I go on?"
"That's not what you think. He's been supportive. I was going through a rough patch with Dylan."
She was triggered by the fact that we had checked her phone records. Rough patch.
"Dylan had a temper. He used to get jealous easily."
"Did he ever threaten you?"
"Once or twice. He said if I ever left him, he'd make me regret it, but he never meant it."
"And yet, you were sleeping with your boss." I expected her to at least deny it, but she didn't. Instead, tears rolled down her face.
"It wasn't supposed to happen like this."
"What wasn't? The affair or the murder. Once again, she didn't deny anything, just sobbed into her hands. Next in line for interrogation was Vincent Hale, and I knew he had something to do with the murder. Vincent, you said you and Dylan were on good terms.
That's right.
Then why did we find messages from him on your phone, demanding money?
I didn't want to bring that up. Dylan was blackmailing me.
He admitted, but looked hesitant to elaborate. Go on.
He found out about me and Ella. Said he'd go to my wife, ruin my business and my family. He wanted $50,000.
So you paid him?
I didn't. I told him to back off. He got aggressive. Came to the spa one night with a gun. Said he'd shoot me if I didn't pay. I had to protect myself.
By hiring killers? I had pieced two and two together, but I wanted to see the shock on his face when I revealed my findings.
What? No. Are you insane?
Vincent denied it, but he was trembling. Then why did you search for how to hire a hitman online on your laptop just 2 weeks ago?
That's not... You have no proof.
We have enough to hold you, Vincent. Don't make it worse. As I interrogated him, forensics went through Vincent's financials, and they found 2 encrypted payments made through a dark web wallet, both sent to the same anonymous account the night before Dylan's death. That account linked back to a burner phone. That burner phone pinged near the spa at 2:17 a.m. 2 men in black hoodies had been caught on a street camera nearby, faces covered, walking toward the spa. It wasn't random. It was planned. But there was one more layer left, the motive behind the motive. I went back in to talk to Ella, but this time we had Vincent along with her in the same room. You know what's funny? The payments came from Vincent's account, but the account was created from your laptop, Ella.
That's impossible.
That's when she knew we had her. Not really. You see, the spa's Wi-Fi logs show your device was active that night, and your fingerprints are on the back office keyboard.
Ella, what the hell did you do?
Vincent turned to Ella and growled.
Me? You're the one that told me it was handled. You said you'd make sure Dylan never hurt me again.
So it was planned together.
It wasn't supposed to go that far. You said you'd just scare him.
Ella was blaming Vincent, crying and hitting him hysterically.
You were the one who sent the men his picture. You told him he'd be alone.
So there were 2 men, both hired online, paid by Vincent, arranged by Ella. They both had played right into my trap.
She's lying.
Vincent tried to save himself, but it was of no use.
You're a monster.
Enough. You both are. Turns out Dylan had never blackmailed Vincent. The so-called gun threat was a fabrication, a convenient story to justify the payments. Ella and Vincent had been having an affair for 6 months. Dylan had begun to suspect. He'd been shouting at Ella outside the spa 2 nights before the murder. Vincent wanted him gone, but not in a way that pointed back to him. They found 2 men on an online forum who claimed to clean up messes. The price? $50,000. The same sum Dylan was supposedly demanding. Ella unlocked the spa that night, pretending to forget to lock it again. Vincent sent the killers the location. Dylan stayed behind. They walked in through the unlocked door and slit his throat while he sat half asleep in the steam room. Then they vanished into the night. But digital breadcrumbs don't vanish. 3 weeks later, both Vincent Hale and Ella Grant were charged with conspiracy to commit murder, first-degree homicide, and obstruction of justice. The 2 masked killers were found in a motel 40 miles away, with blood-stained cash, blades, and messages from an encrypted chat with Ella's username. They all got life, no parole. The spa reopened 6 months later. New name, new owner. But I still remember that morning. The faint scent of eucalyptus mixed with the iron tang of blood. The rippling water. stained crimson under the soft yellow lights, and Ella's voice echoed through the hall.
He just wanted to rest here. I never thought it would end like this.
That's the thing about murder. It never ends where you think it will. It starts with love, burns into fear, and ends with silence. People kill for money, for jealousy, for power, but most often, they kill for the illusion of peace.
Before I begin this story, I'd like to inform whoever's listening to this that I am not crazy. I didn't make up the words you're about to hear, as I can remember this incident like it happened yesterday. But for some reason, no one seems to believe me, as they've all doubted my memories and words. I've questioned my own sanity ever since this bizarre experience, but I still stand by what I said and what I remember. I don't care about what some professor said or what memory experiment she carried out on me that day. Every word that I told them was real. I did get lost in the mall as a child, and nothing she says is going to make me believe otherwise. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, and to understand this story properly, I need to take you back to the year 1995, when I signed up to be a participant in a truly bizarre memory experiment. I was a struggling college kid at the time, doing everything I could to get my grades up. I minored in cognitive psychology at the University of Washington, and one particular afternoon, one of my friends, a girl named Claire, who knew I was struggling to get my grades up, told me about an extra credit assignment being offered by Professor Elizabeth Loftus. Professor Loftus was a brilliant psychologist who taught courses on the psychology of memory in addition to cognitive psychology. She was one of my favorite professors at UW, so I gladly signed up to participate in the assignment as I desperately needed the extra credit. After I'd signed up to be a participant, I was asked to provide the names and contacts of my family members, as it was necessary for the study. I provided the contacts of both my mom and older sister, and a few days later the assignment finally began. I was informed that the assignment was going to be broken down into 3 phases. For the first phase, I was given a booklet by Professor Loftus, and I was told it contained 4 summarized stories concerning events that happened during my childhood. These 4 stories were provided and confirmed by our parents and siblings. I was then told to read these stories and add any additional details I could remember from these events that occurred during my childhood in the following days. The first story was about the time my dad took me to a Bears game, and I cried when they lost a very notable game to the Detroit Lions. The second one told of the time I went camping with my siblings, and I couldn't sleep the entire night after my sister told a pretty creepy story around the campfire. The third event described the day we moved from Schaumburg, Illinois to Seattle, and how I complained during the entire trip about how my Duke G.I. Joe action figure and the Sky Striker toy fighter jet had been left behind. The fourth and final entry recounted the time I'd visited the Woodfield Mall with my mom when I was about 8 years old, and I got lost when I was distracted. As I went through the first phase of the assignment, it was fairly easy for me to remember additional details for the first 3 memories, as I could still recall these memories pretty clearly in my head. However, I initially had some difficulty properly remembering the 4th one. I knew it happened, as I could vaguely recall bits and pieces of that day, but it all seemed a bit hazy to me. However, the longer I thought about it, the more the memories came back to me. I eventually remembered several details of how I'd gotten lost in the Woodfield Mall, located in Schaumburg, Illinois, on that fateful day. I recalled seeing a Back to the Future movie poster while I was walking beside my mom, and I ran off to check it out when she let go of my hand and wasn't looking. I walked around trying to find her after I'd lost my way, and I got distracted again when I saw the famous Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone book that everyone had been talking about in school in a bookstore in the mall. I was eventually found by an elderly mall employee who used a public address system to make an announcement over the intercom, where she described my appearance in case someone was looking for me. I was then taken to a central location in the mall where my mom was told to wait, and I remember the worried look on her face as she hugged me.
The last thing I could recall from that experience was my mom telling me to never leave her side again while I was eating dinner and watching a SpongeBob episode after we got home. I didn't know how, but it had all come back to me pretty clearly as the days passed. By the time Phase 1 was over, I could remember every major detail of that day as if it happened yesterday. The second phase of the assignment soon began after we were told to return the booklets, and it was basically a series of interviews where we were asked if we could remember and provide more details of all 4 events. I was easily able to tell them more details about all 4 memories, particularly the 4th one, as I now remembered entering the bookstore and reaching for the Harry Potter book when the elderly mall employee asked where my mom was. I was also able to remember a few details of the SpongeBob episode I watched the following morning, when my mom was cautioning me yet again about not leaving her side under any circumstances. The interviews during the second phase lasted about 1 to 2 weeks, and eventually led to the third and final phase. I remember being excited for the third part of the assignment, as I wanted to see how it all ended. However, what I didn't know at the time was the final phase of this memory experiment would go on to cause the biggest existential crisis I'd ever suffered in my life. The third phase of the assignment held a mind-bending twist as Professor Loftus called all 24 participants and told us that one of the 4 memories and events from our childhood that we were told to add additional details to was fake. This particular memory was apparently planted in our minds by her using something called the lost in a mall technique that she developed through a study based on the malleability of human memory and the power of suggestion, which basically meant that one of the 4 memories we all remembered clearly never really happened. I remember being utterly baffled by her statements, as I was 100% sure that each memory actually happened. I was then instructed to choose the one I thought was fake, and while I was adamant that each memory was real, I ended up choosing the campfire story as I didn't fully remember the entire details of the story my sister told that night. Professor Loftus then looked me dead in the eyes, and I could never forget the assurance in her brown eyes behind her glasses as she told me that I was wrong, and that the memory she implanted in my head was the story about being lost in the mall. I was a bit agitated now, and I told her she was wrong, as the 4th memory was the only one I was 100% sure had happened. But that's when Professor Loftus broke my mind by revealing all the holes in my recollections. She began by pointing out the part in the 4th memory where I said I was distracted by a Back to the Future movie poster at the mall. She said this couldn't have been possible, because since I was 8 years old in each of the 4 memories I'd described, the year would have had to have been 1981, as I was born in 1973. Professor Loftus then revealed that the very first Back to the Future movie was released on the 3rd of July, 1985, around 4 years after I'd supposedly seen the poster in the mall. Similar plot holes and fallacies were also found in several other details I'd given, as the first Harry Potter book that I'd claimed I saw in the mall in 1981 didn't exist at the time, as the book was first published in 1997, a whole 16 years later. Also, Nickelodeon's SpongeBob that I'd watched after coming home hadn't even aired its first episode yet, as the famous cartoon didn't start until the 1st of May, 1999. I'd later fact-checked all of these dates and found out that she was telling the truth, but I still didn't believe her. I defended myself, saying that while the descriptive details might be incorrect, I did get lost in the Woodfield Mall, but it may have happened in a later year, like in 1985 or 86. Professor Loftus then told me that even if this event did happen later down the line, the memory would still be fake, as she'd specifically asked my mother about details of the first 3 real memories, and the third one revealed my family had left Schaumburg, Illinois, where the Woodfield Mall was located, in the year 1981, and moved to Seattle. So it was basically impossible for me to get lost in the Woodfield Mall at a later date, as I was already in Seattle, about 3,257 kilometers away from the state of Illinois, where the mall was located. My mind was struggling to comprehend what was going on, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I left. I immediately called my mom and begged her to corroborate my story.
but she sided with Professor Loftus by saying,
"No, you were never lost in the mall, dear. I made sure to always hold you tight when we went outside, since you often liked running around as a child."
With no more excuses left, I began to question my sanity as I asked myself if I was crazy. I knew the memory of getting lost in the Woodfield Mall was real, but somehow I was the only one who believed it. It took me some time to get over the memory experiment. I dropped Professor Loftus's class after the assignment, as any time I saw the woman's brown hair and her brown eyes behind those glasses, I felt like I was going crazy. I later dropped my minor in cognitive psychology, as I wanted to distance myself from everything that had to do with it. It's been over 29 years since I participated in the Lost in the Mall study, but I can still remember every detail of it as if something that has stuck with me ever since. Despite what Professor Loftus said, I still refuse to believe my own thoughts were fake or planted. The entire ordeal often pops into my mind from time to time, and I've begun to wonder if there's a part of me that knows the memory I have of getting lost in the mall wasn't real, and I made the whole thing up. But I refuse to accept it because the idea of a random woman successfully placing a fake childhood memory in my mind truly terrifies me, and it really makes me question what other horrors can be found in the depths of cognitive psychology. In the year 1995, a well-known American psychologist named Elizabeth Loftus carried out a peculiar study with 24 students at the University of Washington, Seattle. It was called the Lost in the Mall Study, and it was carried out by Professor Loftus and Jacqueline Pickrell. This study dealt with the investigation of false memories and how easy it is to implant a false memory in a human mind using the right techniques. The real story you just heard detailed the 3 phases of the steps of the technique, and at the end of it all, about 25% of the study's participants strongly believed the planted false memory was real, and they all added additional details to the fake memory. The study sparked a massive debate with several psychologists and therapists all over the world, as some believed in its effectiveness, while others questioned the entire technique. However, despite all of this, the Lost in the Mall technique has remained one of the most fascinating studies in cognitive psychology and the wider field of psychology to this very day.